Well, we were just talking about how challenging the spring semester was, and we're happy to see it behind us,
Mm.
which allows us a great segue to our guest speaker on today. She's going to talk to us about how to manage workplace fatigue that comes with roles that serve students. And as academic advisors, we are well aware of what that is like and the problems that entails. But I am just thrilled that she is here to speak with us on this afternoon. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Sharell D. Cannady is a licensed clinical mental health counselor and founder of Docked Ships, an organization dedicated to advancing the social health and wellness of African American women. Her work focuses on the intersection of high achievement, chronic overfunctioning, and relational stress among Black women and couples. Cannady integrates culturally responsive care, evidence based holistic practice, and community centered approaches into her 8 years of clinical and educational work. She is particularly interested in addressing overlooked mental health concerns within Black communities and developing innovative interventions that reconnect individuals with their bodies, relationships, and emotional well-being. I'm so thrilled that she is here with us. Everyone, please let us welcome Miss Sharell Cannady. So everyone, please welcome Miss Cannady.
Thank you so much for having me here, you guys. This is kind of a full circle moment for me because being a therapist is my second career. I was in higher education for a little over 12 years, so I'm honored to be here today. I'm going to answer the questions today about burnout and work-life balance in higher education. To let y'all know a little bit more about me, I'm a little bit unorthodox. So again, I might tell a joke, but I'm not going to tell a lie. And so the way that I typically address things, I address things with just hard hitting truths and just having a nod to Black culture as well. Now, specifically, the way that I do therapy is I challenge individuals relative to misaligned thoughts, emotions, values, and actions. And so those are called cognitive distortions. And typically we have trouble with those relative to people, processes, and systems. And so even though we have the two questions today, I'm going to break down aspects of the questions in some of the things that we know, but we don't necessarily say. And I'll be able to provide a lot of low-hanging fruit that you all can go toward in tackling what these questions are. So the truth about service roles in education, right? There's a constant pressure to produce, right? So there's metrics, there's KPIs, there's things in which you have to perform and aspects of identifying productivity. But the issue is you're having to leverage a lot of emotional and mental labor in supporting students while also navigating your personal and professional obligations. And so that means that oftentimes the issues that go on with those who served are overlooked. So I'm usually conversational. So y'all gonna have to give me like some head nods, some thumbs up. So y'all feeling me? Am I preaching good? Amen. Okay. Okay. And so with that, the questions were presented in today's presentation of how to manage workplace fatigue and burnout, as well as achieve work-life balance. And so with y'all today, I'm going to tell y'all a couple of things. And usually what I tell people that I work with, like, I'm going to tell you stuff about your job, but just know I can't pay you. So you're going to have to figure it out from there. But what'll happen is I'm going to break this down. And there's specific types of mindsets that happen relative to these questions because of the systems that we're in. And so the hard truth is, if we talk about burnout, if we talk about work-life balance, burnout is not something that's just in your head. It's not a short-term thing. It is something that actually happens on a cellular level, which I study as a more so holistic therapist, right? So it's going on in your body. So even as Black people, we use the words like I'm tired, but we each know like when you say you're tired, there's like different levels of tired. There's mental tiredness, soul level of tiredness. I mean, just tired. And so there is varying degrees of that when we talk about we're tired, when we're burnt out. And so what ends up happening with burnout is it actually leads to incompetence. So when we're so tired, we're not going to do our jobs effectively. And then the interesting part is once we don't do our jobs effectively, then it leads to something really bad going wrong. So, like in my work as a therapist, if I am not well, if I'm not working on my wellness, my incompetence comes in, I'm missing if someone could potentially be suicidal. And then that impairment is I'm allowing someone to go out and ultimately harm themselves, or unfortunately, in some cases, harm another individual. So I have to really focus on burnout. The other thing that research says is that burnout actually results in chronic illness or death. So not only not doing your job effectively or creating some type of impairment, but in your own well-being and health, chronic illness or death. So what I'm explaining is this is an epidemic. It's not just a concept. And so the idea with these questions is burnout can't be managed. It actually must be eradicated. So no to management of burnout. We must eradicate it. And even when we talk about work life balance is really a flawed concept, right? Because there's no structure to that balance. We're working more hours than we're actually living, right? So even if, let's just say, because I know y'all definitely might work more hours than 8, even if your work hours are from 8 to 5, y'all having emails, I know when I stopped working in higher education, I had to disconnect my email to my phone. That ding literally gave me PTSD. And it was so crazy. My husband had to disconnect it for me. And so even though y'all are 8 to 5, y'all are answering emails well past 8 to 5. So a lot of your working hours outnumber your living hours. And for those of you all who have families, children, then that means realistically, you're only spending probably about 3 hours with those children, if not helping doing homework, bath time, dinner, done. So when we talk about the concept of work-life balance, even if we identify the weekend, I don't know if y'all were like me. I used to be like, I'm gonna clean up, I'm gonna do, when I tell y'all, I used to say I'm gonna do 50 billion things over the weekend. It's just 2 days. And that ain't for real 2 days, especially if you're a churchgoer, okay? That's probably about 5 good hours in and of itself, all right? So there's a lot of misalignment that is presented in these ideas. And so I wanted to begin to challenge you all in the way you actually think about these questions. Because unfortunately, and again, I'm silly, but I like to say it like this, sometimes when I hear certain questions, people are really asking me how to abandon their own wellness. So on my end, I'm hearing like, hey, how can I be a better slave to this situation that does not benefit me? Even the check itself may not be giving me what it's supposed to give. So that's how I look at those things. The other aspect of it is there's a misalignment in the way, again, in how we embody those ideas and behaviors when it comes to service and productivity that do not benefit us. And so there's specific research concepts called John Henryism when we talk about African American men, and then the Superwoman syndrome when we talk about African American women. Now, with the Superwoman syndrome, I tend to talk about this a lot. And let me see, I wanted to be tech savvy today. So this is supposed to lead into a video. We're gonna pray it leads into a video. We're gonna see.
Let's talk about something many of us feel deep in our bones: the pressure to wear the cape, to be the superwoman for everyone. You know the feeling. You're the one people lean on at work, at home, with friends. You're supposed to be the rock. But who holds up the rock? For many women, strength has been defined as handling everything without complaining, just pushing through. But let's be honest, it's exhausting. The pressure comes from every direction, and it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It feels like a mandate. And this isn't just a feeling, it's been studied. Researchers call it the superwoman schema. Think of it as a mental blueprint, an invisible job description that says you must be strong, hide your emotions, and take care of everyone else, even at your own expense. This schema includes 5 core characteristics: an obligation to be strong, suppression of emotions, resistance to vulnerability, a relentless drive to succeed, a deep responsibility to care for others. And if that sounds familiar, it's because this cape wasn't something we were born with. It was passed down. It starts with history, where strength was necessary for survival. It was reinforced by mothers and grandmothers who taught self-sufficiency as a necessity, not a choice. Then our own life experiences, disappointments, challenges add more layers to that armor. It becomes a generational trickle effect where each generation teaches the next how to endure. But here's the truth. This strength is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it has protected families, sustained communities, and ensured survival. On the other hand, it carries a heavy cost: strained relationships, unhealthy coping habits, lack of rest, and consistently placing ourselves last. As researchers note, our greatest asset, our strength, can become a liability when we operate on autopilot, never questioning whether it's still serving us. And this isn't just emotional, it's physical. The stress doesn't stay in the mind, it shows up in the body. Women in these studies connected this pressure to migraines, hair loss, panic attacks, weight gain, depression, and even complications in pregnancy. As one woman put it, "What doesn't kill you will make you sick." One story captured this clearly. A woman reflected on her grandmother, who never showed emotion but lived with chronic illness, diabetes, cancer, and a nervous breakdown. Only later did she realize her grandmother had internalized everything. It raised a powerful question. Was that really strength if it made her physically weak? So this is where we are. The cape is part of our legacy. It represents survival, resilience, and care. But maybe the goal isn't to throw it away. Maybe the question is, how do we honor our strength without sacrificing ourselves to it?
So, with the Superwoman schema, that's one of the ways that we deal with service and productivity that doesn't necessarily benefit us, because what we're believing the benefits are, the cost actually outweighs. And we're always leveraging that, unfortunately, with our lives. And so that's a part of the concern that I typically have when I look at things like burnout and work-life balance. Because one of the very, very low-hanging fruits is we need to actually understand how wellness works. And so research identifies with wellness, there's actually 8 dimensions of wellness. And there's dimensions of wellness in which we hold more control over internally, and then there's some external dimensions. And so with those external dimensions, when we talk about the workplace, that's in the occupational arena, which a lot of times we don't have control over. We don't have control over what is the overall plan, what's happening there, who's going to get promoted, what concerns are going to be identified. And sometimes, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control over our finances because we can be stuck in a specific occupation just because, we need our bills to be paid. But what we can do is identify aspects of our physical wellness, emotional, mental, and as well as spiritual. Now, the way that this works is because a lot of times we are told about the word balance. Like I said, balance itself is a misconception. So even when it comes to work-life balance, like I told you, that's a misconception. Even when we think that we can balance these things out. So sometimes we're kind of in the position where we feel like we're juggling these things. And so if you visually think about juggling, some of the balls are going to be on top and some of them are going to be on the bottom. But you get to prioritize what's on the top and what's on the bottom. But for us as African Americans, we will say everything is a priority, and that's not true. Some things are more of a priority than others. So we can think about job, we can think about that being important. But notice the job is leveraged a little bit, it's positioned a little bit lower when there are aspects of physical health that come into play, because how are you going to do the job if you're not physically well? And so everything cannot be all important at one time. We have to prioritize what is actually important. And so in the concept of kind of like balance, and because I'm nullifying that, one of the visual representations I like to give is kind of think of like your music producer and you have a soundboard. You're going to decide where the volume needs to be turned up and where the volume needs to be turned down and what works for you in the sound that you're attempting to produce. But we can't turn the volume up on everything all at once. And so that's what I want you all to think about when you understand wellness. You are going to have to prioritize what is more important. It is not all important, because those are the things that we tell ourselves. It's all important. If I don't do this, then I can't do this. And then no, it's not all important. You got to pick which ones are your priorities. Your environment cannot determine that for you. Your work cannot determine that for you. All right. So low level hanging fruit when it comes to those two questions of burnout and work-life balance. One, is very important that we do not lie to ourselves. Reason why I have to say that is because, just like I showed you the video with the superwoman syndrome, we're literally taught from our families how to keep going. So essentially, a lot of times when I meet people that I'm working with, by the time I meet them, they're way past E. They're way past E. I'm like, how are you even running on fumes, right? Because we have to admit when we're not okay. So if I look at this kind of like a car, right? So like in your car, when you put gas in there, right? Like it's easier for your tank to be filled up when you're at a fourth of a tank. It's harder for your tank to be filled up when you're completely on empty. So I have to get Black people to stop lying to themselves. You will go beyond past empty so many times. And again, at this point, you cannot be okay because the world is not okay. I saw something on Threads and it made me laugh because it was like, oh, this is how the Lions at Pride Rock must have felt when Scar took over. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how I feel. But essentially, don't lie. We're not okay. There's no way you can be a benefit of these to these students because you're not okay. All right. Also, don't push through. One of the things that we fail to do as African Americans is we fail to document our wellness with trained professionals. I often get put in a very interesting bind because by the time people come to me because they identify they're not well, there's no record of them ever being well. Being not well, because what they'll do is they'll want to go on FMLA or short-term disability, but I have to explain to them there's no record of you not being okay. So if you come to me already past empty and you like, I just can't take this anymore, it's gonna be difficult because there's no record of you not being okay. So just like y'all tell those students, you have to identify what's going on early, often, frequently. So what I'm telling y'all is y'all gonna have to take your own advice, okay? Just like you tell them kids, you gotta do it for yourself. And y'all know just how much it can get crazy when kids don't handle situations. Because I remember a lot of my work study students and everything else. I'm like, now what happened? How you let it get that far? And so that's what I'm telling you. Your advice, please take it, all right? Also, the other thing, and it's very important for me to tell Black people this, do not be afraid to get a little extra help. And what I mean by that is any type of medication you might need, supplements, anything, please take them. Again, the world is weird, okay? Not you, just the world. And we need whatever extra push, you know? And the way we are, because of history with just medical services, we like, I'm not. Listen, this is how it works. If you have to be honest, or you're going to be on the news. Plain and simple. Be honest or be on the news, all right? And so that's me. I wanted to kind of abbreviate my presentation and stay within 30 minutes so you all can talk to me and ask me any questions about the information that I presented.